Good morning and welcome to Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast where we are discussing and going through the Bhagavad Gita and learning about sacred truths and how to bring them into our everyday lives. I'm here with our live studio audience and co-host Achyuta Gopi. How are you doing this morning, Achyuta?
Feeling sheltered.
Sheltered. I like that. That's good. I think I'm also feeling sheltered.
Yeah.
I think I'm also feeling sheltered. And I'm really feeling sheltered by like the name of Krishna, actually, because I've been having like really weird dreams that are not fun. And so before bed, I've like been having a little meditation where like I sing to myself like a little kirtan, or I'll just like in my mind just like chant Krishna's names, and it's actually been helping and sheltering me and protecting me.
It absolutely does help. Also, apparently, if you listen to the story of Gajendra,
Hmm.
it's literally supposed to, like the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, that part says it protects you from bad dreams. I don't know why, but it does.
There you go. There you go. Well, we are reading Bhagavad Gita and we are up to chapter 2.
Woohoo!
Did it.
New day, new chapter.
New day, new chapter. So
Wow.
take us
I'm feeling that. New day, new chapter. Let's do it.
new chapter. Take us away, Achyuta. Let's get into chapter 2.
Although you had bookmarked something to talk about yesterday, you just started talking about it at the end of yesterday's episode.
Yeah,
We'll get into that today. Yeah.
I bookmark.
I don't know. We'll see. If anybody remembers, put it in the
We'll
chat.
find
But for now, contents of the Gita summarized.
it.
Text 1. Sanjaya said, we spoke about, is Dhritarashtra's charioteer, advisor, friend, who he is now speaking to. Seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan Krishna spoke the following words. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy." I kind of like these two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, especially that second one. You know, it's besides behold all the Kurus who have assembled here. This is kind of the first time we are getting a chance to hear Krishna speak and express a little bit of his personality. And I remember reading Bhagavad Gita several times, and every time the anticipation became more and more. It almost became like, you're waiting for the celebrity to make their main appearance.
Mm.
And finally, like, Krishna makes his main appearance. So in my mind, there's like all this amazing, like, epic hero music behind it. You've got like battlefields on either side. You've got like armies and people. And finally, you've got like this slow, like, rise close up down from like the feet, and then it goes on up. And then finally, you've got Krishna, and finally he's speaking. So this is one of those verses for me where I'm like, woohoo!
Finally.
And basically, he could have said anything, actually. And I still would have fangirled the same way.
I think it's really important to, once again, really pay attention to context. And I know we're not reading the purports, but they're so good.
They're really good.
They're really good.
We can read parts of the purports.
Yeah, I'm going to read a little bit of a part of the purport, if that's okay. Because like when you read the second verse, right, and Krishna, this is like one of the first time Krishna is speaking.
Well, besides behold.
Besides behold.
Okay. Behold.
And like if you're reading this out of context, or if you're reading this with like, I don't know, a mindset of like whatever, like new agey blah blah mindset, because the first verse of this is like Arjuna's full of compassion, his mind is depressed, his eyes are full of tears. Like you kind of feel bad for Arjuna, like
homeboy is crying.
He's crying.
He's like, he was holding a bow and arrows and a quiver and all this stuff. he was just like, I can't do this. I don't can do this anymore. You know what? I'm not gonna do this. He sits down. It's like this really big, like, it's a pretty dramatic moment. Got this seasoned veteran warrior. He's like a tough guy, and all of a sudden he has completely crumpled and broken down. And Krishna's like reaction is, "Whoa, what happened to you?"
Exactly. Exactly. That's Krishna's reaction. He's like, what's going on with you?
Yeah,
Like,
he's like, "Well, what just happened here? What are you doing?"
he's like, what are these impurities that are on you right now? This is not, it's almost like this mood of like, this is not befitting of a man, like, come on, like get yourself together. Like this is
Yeah, it's exactly that. Because
exactly that. Like
when
this is
Krishna says "behold," it's jokingly. Like he's like, "What are you gonna do? Run?" He's like, "We're here now. What other option is there?" And so then he's like, "What are you gonna do? Run?" And then Arjuna's like, "Yes." He's like, "Whoa, that was not supposed to be the answer."
and I really, yesterday we brought up this point. I brought up this point of like, when you use words so much that you kind of lose the meaning of the word. And I was speaking specifically of compassion. And there's so many words that we like overuse again and again, like love and compassion, like
Gaslighting, toxic.
gaslighting. Oh my God, the 3-year-old gaslight. I was dying. That's too much. Um, but it's interesting because like if you're reading this out of context, you're like, Arjuna's full of compassion and he's crying and Krishna is kind of being a little rough with him. And it's so interesting. I just want to read a little bit of this purport of the first verse. So Srila Prabhupada says, material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. It's like,
Yeah.
like drop. It's like, boom,
Yeah, you're expecting all this like heartfelt sympathy and somebody like hold your hand through it, and everybody's like, we're not holding your hand through this. And
Mm-mm.
and they're not even condemning compassion,
Mm.
but they're condemning the misplaced compassion.
Exactly. The misplaced compassion. And he goes on, he says, compassion for the eternal soul is self realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless.
Is a genius. This is a great analogy.
Yeah, this is wonderful. A man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was sung by him. And this chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. And the realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. So there's a lot there, but basically it's just like, it's pretty succinct, it's pretty clear, and it's like, it's so nice because like you're saying, Achita, it's like sometimes we expect like the hand holding and like compassion and like everything's just like love and rainbows and all this stuff and everyone's, whatever. And Srila Prabhupada is just like, no, actually, like no one knows how to apply this compassion or where to apply this compassion or what this compassion even means. And so I think that a lot of times when people are using these high lofty words, it's like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Are we on the same plane? Like, are we coming from the same place? And I think that that's always really important when talking to others, when getting into debates with others, which is why I don't bother most of the time, because I'm just like, chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Have you read it? Yes? Then we can talk. If you haven't read it, then there's not really a point because our understanding of what compassion is, or our understanding of what this body and what this world is, are very, very different.
And they're not saying don't have any compassion, but it's like those memes where the person is drowning and they're reaching out, and instead of saving them, you like high five, and you let them drown. It's like exactly like those memes, and Srila Prabhupada's analogy was so good. It's like, imagine if somebody was drowning and they're screaming for help. You're like, no problem, I got you. And you jump in and just grab the shirt and then get out and then watch them helplessly, like, oh, nothing I can do. And so this is this idea of actually being like hashtag real woke, you know. Arjuna is thinking that he was like on it, you know, better. He had given all of his logic, and it seemed like Krishna had just like listened, just gave him space. He allowed him to say his piece. And Arjuna says, a lot better if they kill me than and unarmed and a coward on the battlefield than for me to kill them. I should just, like, maybe I can go to the forest. Like, I don't think this is going to be a good idea, Krishna. And how could you have even told me that this was going to be a good idea? Like, this was the worst idea that you've ever come up with in the history of the world. And you're the husband of the goddess of fortune. Like, you're supposed to bring victory with you wherever you go. How could you have advised me to do this? Like, what kind of person are you? And Krishna's just kind of like listening really quietly for a long time. And finally, I feel like he's like, what the hell's the matter with you, man? Like, that's really simplest like answer. And sometimes you need that. You need somebody to look from the outside at all of your stuff, hold space for it, let you purge it out, let you get it out, let you throw your bow. Actually, Krishna loves drama. I mean, I would say Krishna doesn't like drama, except for the man was born at midnight in a prison cell in the middle of a hurricane like thunderstorm. He is really, for somebody who is now asking Arjuna what happened to him, he is the most dramatic. But this is Krishna, and like you said, with the context, sometimes we need somebody outside of ourselves to look at all the things that we've just complained about and gone, okay, now let's separate out the first world problems from the actual problems. Like, let's separate this out, shall we? But the first thing, he's like, it just happened to you. And I love it that he will double back in a second. And he continuously does this throughout the entire Bhagavad Gita. He'll give you like a really like high up here principle, idea, theory. And then he'll break it down smaller and smaller and smaller. And it seems like every chapter, just when you feel like none of this is going to work and my head's going to explode, Krishna will turn around and he'll turn the entire theory on its head and be like, or you could just be my friend. So like he'll give this theory, like, you want to really be a yogi? Cool. I'll tell you what that entails. And then he'll break it down and break it down and break it down. You're like, oh my God, my head's reeling. I feel worse than I did before. I don't think any of this is possible. And now my head's going to explode. And just when you get to that breaking point, it feels like, and reading Bhagavad Gita, I feel like there have been so many times each chapter, I'm like, I don't even know what he's talking about. And just when I get to that breaking point, Krishna switches everything and makes it the most simple answer. He's like, or you could be my friend and I'll handle it. Every chapter. And it's kind of genius. I mean, you know, for Supreme Person, it should be. But it's really genius the way this Bhagavad Gita takes this trajectory. And so excited to see it. I love it.
I love it too. I'm also very excited to see it. And second chapter is one of my favorite chapters, actually, because I feel like, I mean, the name of the chapter is Contents of the Gita Summarized, so it's like it's all in there. But yeah, this really nice, something that you said kind of caught my eye of like, yeah, Krishna's presenting this like high and lofty philosophical stuff to Arjuna. Arjuna gets confused. This kind of like the pattern of the Gita. And then Krishna's like, or you could just like love me and be my friend. And it's so interesting because that love and that being like, it's almost like you need to accept that that's possible first to really get in there. Because, you know, it's like there's so many spiritual texts out there by our teachers that explain kind of like the science of this love and what it actually looks like and what it actually entails, like this friendship and this love with Krishna. But it's like, you know, a lot of times you'll hear around devotee circles of like not wanting to get into too, I don't know, high stuff. It's like, oh, you know, I'm not qualified, I'm not qualified, I'm not qualified. And I'm just like, I mean, we are qualified because, you know, Srila Prabhupada gave us our qualification, but I think what really sometimes disqualifies us is our own acceptance of is this actually possible? Like, do we actually believe that it's possible for Krishna to love me and for me to love Krishna? And I think that that's why Bhagavad Gita is so important, and it's seen as like a preliminary study before you get into things like Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it's like that that full acceptance of like, yes, Krishna is going to take care of me. Yes, I actually believe what he is telling me. It's like that's absolutely necessary first before you start getting into like the high philosophy, you know, rasa tattva and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, you know.
And that's exactly what Srila Prabhupada was saying in the introduction, that one must accept, at least theoretically,
Mhm.
that this is possible, that this is true. And not just that there is a God, that this is true, that there is a God that loves you.
Mhm.
And I think so much of it is, and I was talking to my sister about this yesterday, and I was saying, you know, people don't, they have a hard time allowing things to go right, especially in religion. And I was asking somebody recently, they were talking to me, they had a big like spiritual problem. And I finally got to the root of it, and I was like, this is actually not a problem. Like, do you want things to go well? And they were like, well, yeah. And I was like, it seems like you're having a problem allowing things to be okay.
Mhm.
We are so used to struggle that we've decided like spiritual life must be a struggle. And if it's not a struggle, then I'm going to create struggles. I'm like, you're creating issues where there are none. There actually are no issues. If you just continue with the path the way you're going, there are no issues. And so, my sister was bringing up such a good point. She was like, you know, people have been disappointed. First and foremost, we've disappointed ourselves by turning away from our dear supreme most best friend in the first place. And then we've been disappointed by other people, expecting them to fill that God shaped hole in the heart.
Mhm.
And these are limited living entities trying to fill this unlimited space. And it is not, they are fallible, and our Krishna is infallible. And so we've been trying to put other things in this. And so we've been constantly disappointed and frustrated. And so now this is all we expect, that God must be the same. Like, we have no understanding even that it could be better. And I feel like Srila Prabhupada is constantly trying to drive home this point that, guys, it could be better than this. So much better. Just give yourself to it. And that letting go of the resistance is surrender. We need that surrender to let go of the resistance of, but what if you just give yourself to this process and it could turn out better than you've ever expected? What if this was the thing that you've been looking for all along, to fill this hole that you've tried to put other stuff and people in? And this is not to say that we don't need other people, but sometimes we are looking for the partner, for the person, for the friend, for the companion, to do all of these unlimited, infallible things that we are yearning for. And they are one fallible, limited living entity.
I was on Instagram the other day and I was watching this thing that when the first moment I heard it, I was like, ugh, like it rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, no. And then I listened to it again and I was like, oh, fine, like it makes sense. And it was this guy saying like, you know, he was talking about family and parents specifically. And
Mm.
he was just like, you know, if anyone has a strained relationship with their family or with their parents, and you're constantly getting into issues with them or whatever your situation might be, he's like, you have to just like change your perspective and understand that like they're on a journey and they're not going to change unless they want to change, and that's their own thing, you know, like that's their own thing and you have no control over it, so to say. And I think, and it rubbed me the wrong way because, you know, if anyone, I've had strained relationship with my parents and like crazy family story. Anyone who has strained relationship with their families, like it's like your first relationship. So stuff comes up, they did this to me, you know, it's like, that's the easiest way to put it. It's like, and it's just like, actually, wait a minute. It's like, we are trying to suck enjoyment and validation and identity and all these different things from people, from different relationships, from our parents, from our romantic, you know, partners, from our friends. We're trying to like take, you know, like this
Yeah.
thing. And I love what you said. It's like, yeah, it's like we're expecting all of this from people or relationships that are, you know, people that are fallible, like people that will make mistakes. Like there's not a doubt, right? Like they will make mistakes, they will be fallible, they will mess up, you know, they will disappoint. Like that's the nature of being a conditioned soul in this body. And you know, so it's like I feel like having that baseline is really important, you know, because it's like, okay, and that's not saying like be indifferent and jaded and just like, oh, everything's terrible. No, it's like obviously we have our boundaries and like, you know, we have our expectations of what we expect or want or can handle, you know, but it's like that really comes on us. That really comes on us. And if I can't handle something, and I think this is just to tie it back into the Bhagavad Gita, if I can't handle something or if I'm realizing that some situation in life or relationship or whatever is like bringing me unnecessary distress, it's like that's a growth point. That's a place for me to now not like get closer to the person or get further away from you know, whatever we want to do with all that drama. It's actually a place for me to get closer to Krishna.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually a place for me to offer whatever is going on in me because it has more to do with me than the other person. You know, I think as we grow, we learn that it has more to do with me. And so it's really a place to commune with Krishna when life is presenting us with these relationships that we've tried to invest so much in, like we're gonna get something out of it. It's like, you know, that's not the way. It's not the
Yeah. And I think that that's, you know, it also, whenever you hear like a relationship is not two shouldn't be two counterparts coming together to try and make each other whole. It should be two whole people coming together trying. And I always like that always rubbed me the wrong way because I was like, who the heck is actually whole? Ain't nobody whole here. Like, who is actually gonna find somebody? Because there's no one whole. And then you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be whole, and you're supposed to be whole, and then we come together, and then we do this thing. And I'm like, what? No one. This is everybody's a work in progress for life. What do you mean? What is this? But with Krishna consciousness, it feels so much different because it's not about me becoming perfect or whole. It's about me actually accepting and working on my relationship with Krishna. That is the thing that makes us perfect, whole, complete, etc. Because we already are when we're in connection with Him. When we are in connection with the root source of all of us, it becomes a much more holistic way of thinking. And so Arjuna in this situation has kind of veered off and he's like going down this path, and it's almost like, you ever tell your friend something like really deep and you think they're going to take it one way and then they kind of like laugh first and then they're like, oh wait, you're serious? Like, I feel like we have one of these moments. Like, Arjuna's like thrown down this bow and Krishna's like, what are you doing? Like, are you crying? What's happening? And I'm like, you know, they have been through so much together that it's not even about the outward show. It's about who Arjuna was. And like you said, there's so much context. um Krishna has just seen him through a decade plus of exile, where that entire time Arjuna's been boasting about what he's going to do as soon as he gets on that battlefield. He's been telling anybody who will listen.
Mm.
He's been sending messages to the other army about exactly what he will do. So it's like having a boxer or an MMA fighter and they have all the press conferences beforehand, right? And they're telling them all the things. Your mom's gonna have to like ship you home in a cardboard box, all this stuff, like whatever, right? Like all the stuff that you say to boast about what you're gonna do as soon as you get in the ring. And then it's like if you got in the ring and then you went to the coach, like, Coach, I don't think I can do this. You're like, what? What are you talking about? Just yesterday, you said you were gonna pummel them into a million pieces. Like you had all the weapons and the ostras and all this stuff. You're like, meet me behind the school, 3 o'clock. And then 3 o'clock comes and you're the one who is now like, I can't do this. So I feel like the first reaction, Christian's like, are you serious? Like, what are you doing? And then he realized, like, wait, you are serious? Okay, hold on. What's really going on here? Like, let's pick this apart. Like, it's not about this particular issue. Like, this has got to be deeper. And I love that. I love the idea of stopping when we meet that resistance from ourselves and from others, and figuring out, whoa, I don't think this is about this surface issue. What's going on deeper here? Like there's something else. Let's unpack that and let's figure out what's deeper there before we dive off and jump into the abyss of I can't do this. It's never going to work.
Yeah, that's super important, to pause, to stop, to reassess. For some reason, when you said Arjuna was sending messages to the other armies or whatever, like I just imagined Arjuna with his smartphone, like,
Right?
you
He's
guys
like,
are gonna get it. Like, I think it's really, really important what you're saying, because when someone is going through it genuinely, like not we, Krishna is actually being so fun and also loving, because it's like, yeah, from the contextual point of view, it's like Arjuna is kind of talking a big game and then doing a big about face. But then afterwards, it's like, okay, like my homie's really going through something.
yeah.
Let me see what's actually up. And I also think it's a big lesson too, because it's like a lot of us sometimes, like, when you're in a conflict, a lot of the times you want to like figure out the conflict immediately. It's like we have to get into a fight about this, we have to yell about this, we have to whatever about this, we have to type feverishly and send essay texts about this and just and it's just like, wait a minute, is this really about me not washing that plate? Like, is this, or is this really about like me, I don't know.
No, Kishore, it's about me wanting you to feel like you want to wash the plate. I don't want you to just do it because I told you to do it. I want you to feel like you want to wash it.
I live alone, by the way, so I'm having this conversation with myself. I'm like, why didn't you? And there's so much deeper meaning to all of our issues and conflicts that come up, and I think it's so important to just like pause and assess. And sometimes, and I think the biggest lesson here is that sometimes we need help doing that. It's like, it's actually very hard to do that by ourselves because we're so conditioned by whatever guna, whatever is going on in us. But the tendency might be, we all have our unique tendencies, but they're not that unique. It's like either I don't deal with it and I'm just like, whatever, or I like get angry and I'm just like, I'm gonna figure this out. And we get into a fight. And so, yeah, we will fall into our tendencies if we don't have help. And actually, that's the biggest purport here, is that like Krishna is here to help us. Krishna is here to help us through that. We are running fresh out of time, though. It's been a lively, fun conversation, but we want to get our takeaways from our master taker-awayer, Kimberly.
Thank you. Today we're taking away to pause when we recognize resistance and then reassess. Krishna loves us and is here to help us through all our stuff. And before we get to all the high philosophical stuff, we can just simply accept that Krishna is going to take care of us and that we can love him and be his friend.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And if anyone else has any takeaways in the comments, please do write them. Achyuta, what are you walking away with today?
I'm finding my takeaway that matches Kimberly's takeaway. Oh,
boom.
My takeaway is that Krishna is here to help us. if we'll let him, when we least expect it. That really is my takeaway, is that sometimes we have to give ourselves room to pause, and we have to give others room to pause. And I'm a big, like, I think that's, some of my friends have that like drawback. Like, if they come to me with an issue, I'm always like, well, let's take a second and like let's talk it out. And sometimes that's not what they want to hear. Sometimes they're like, but we should, like, I want action right now. Like, we should do the things now. And I'm like, or let's take a moment and like let's just talk about it. Like, I tend to get really like lofty. And then they're like, well, how long is this talk gonna take? I'm like, I don't know, maybe we need a nap. Maybe I need a sandwich. Like, I'm but that's kind of who I am. And I am a big person of like, have we done the thing? Like, I have like a checklist of things. Like, if I'm going through it, I need the checklist. Have I chanted my japa? Have I taken a walk? Did I take a nap? Did I eat a sandwich? Did I drink some water? Like, I'm like, did I make sure that the things were right with me and God before I blast off on whoever I'm like feeling up here about? And I think that it's important to take the checklist, even when the inside of us feels like, I need to do it right now. I need to go do that right now. I am kind of a person, and I do this to myself often. I'm like, I'm not feeling it today, but did I stop and chant japa? Did I stop and talk to Krishna? Did I go for a walk? Did I do the things that I know are going to be good for my mental health going into whatever confrontation, letter, whatever this is? And if not, I tend to like hold off. I'm like, then I can't have that conversation yet. I have to do the things. Otherwise, it's not going to turn out right. And going through conflict after conflict has taught me, take the advice. Just give yourself that moment. Even if, sure, if you need to break down, have that moment. And then chant some, meditate some, really kind of woosah, for lack of a better word, and unpack and find out, okay, what's really going on here? Because sometimes we find out the most wonderful things, which are, I wasn't actually mad about the dishes. I'm angry because I just feel left out and I feel like I need some sense of stability, security, whatever it is. And then we get to come to the people in our lives and be like, I'm feeling insecure. And that's a very different problem than, I feel like you don't text me enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk away with that same takeaway because it's such a good one, and everyone is really resonating with this. Kimberly says, I can be impulsive at times. A checklist sounds helpful. And Pasha says, yes, me too. And I think the worst is when you're like, not only are you impulsive, but like you're looking for your friends to agree with you. You know, you're like, I should send the text, right? Like, he's wrong, right? Like, I'm right, right? And they're just like, well, you know, like, maybe you should like pause. And I'm like, no, I don't want to hear that. Like, I find, and my takeaway is that I find that when you're trying to have the world like convince you, the world, your friends, your surroundings convince you that what you're doing is quote unquote right, usually you're not right. And usually it requires like some deeper investigation into what is really going on. And I really love what you said, Achuta, because it's so true. It's very different to go to someone and be like, hey, I feel insecure and left out. And, you know, can we talk about that? As opposed to, you don't text me enough and you're a bad friend. You know, it's like, it's a very different thing. And it's such an art actually to learn how to do that. And, you know, I've seen many friendships and relationships saved because people have learned how to do that, you know. So it's really important. So I'm also walking away with that as well.
And it's what Arjuna is doing. We'll get into that tomorrow.
Yes, that's exactly what Arjuna is doing. We'll get into it more. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to our live studio audience, Lideshwari, Dana, Kimberly, Martha, Rachna, Lane, Sydney, Pasha, Vidya, Irenka, and Rini. Thank you
all the
all
Krishnas
so
who have
much.
assembled.
And all the Krishnas that have assembled. I need to get myself a little Krishna as well.
Mine says my name on it.
What? Okay. I need a Krishna with my name on it. That's it. That's it.
That's right. Because if it says Kishore Chandra on it, like that really is Krishna. It's like really cool that it's all just little cute little names of Krishna. How adorable would he be?
He would be super adorable, and I can get him like custom with like a little moon on his shoulders. I don't know. Anyway,
Oh my God, that'd be so adorable.
so adorable. Okay, we're all gonna get, and you get a stuffed Krishna, and you get a stuffed Krishna. Thank you all so much for your beautiful presence. We will be here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you all so much, and have a beautiful rest of your day.